SHVUOS mode, ADASS Shlita, SHVUOS Monon v'Rabban v'Rabbi Zay. Baruch Hashem, in our generation, with a tremendous upsurge in Yibud HaTorah at the soil, America, England, as I've seen now here, and all the places in the world, there's a tremendous upsurge in learning. Much more people, many more people learn Torah, yeshivas, kollelin, all kinds of yeshivas. Yet, at the same time, unfortunately, there are a significant number of talmidim, wonderful bocharim, from wonderful homes. They are, nevertheless, they feel disconnected to anything ruchni is. They go through the motions of learning and davening, but the heart is not there. And tragically, many fall away eventually. And those that are more successful may learn with difficulty. They try hard to daven, and nevertheless they feel they aren't really successful. They really don't feel the connection to the Rebbeinu Shalom. They don't feel the geschmack in learning. What can we do about this? How can we make these wonderful, wonderful bocharim to develop a feeling? How can we be mechanech them? How can we mechanech our children to have real feeling of Yiras Shamayim and have a geschmack in learning? It's a very, very difficult thing. Certainly, I come up not here tonight to give an answer like this. But I would want to say a few thoughts on the matter, which might be helpful. To many bocharim might be helpful. Many years ago, I once spoke at a Lev L'Achim function, which was meant to deal with bocharim who have problems and lack of geschmack in learning. And at the time I said many, many reasons, but I also said there are a small number of bocharim who lack the simple, basic knowledge of hashkafa of Yiddishkeit. Things which were at one time poshut people, they don't know. Very, very poshut things they don't know. And at the time, the person who got up after me said that what I said was wrong. A very, very well-known mechanech said that most of the times when there are problems with a bocha, most of the times it emanates from the fact that the bocha is totally not knowledgeable, ignorant of very, very basic hashkafas of Yadus. Now, through the years, I saw how much he was right. Bochum from wonderful, wonderful homes who are sitting and learning for years already come up to me and ask me, what do we have to learn for B'chlal? Another Bochum come and ask me, what can we just learn B'kiyas? The higher Madzegi, you understand you have to learn already. But why even? Why not B'kiyas? Simple questions, Bochum from the best type of houses. Well, there one Bochum is a Bochum of 19 from a wonderful house. Second Bochum is a Bochum of 22 already. And as I see that people are missing very, very fundamental Yidiyas and Hashkafa, we definitely can make a difference in a Bochum. Now I want to mention a few of these items of Hashkafa which I feel are very, very necessary, and which can be started to be taught at a very, very young age. At every part of every point, the fiha madrega of the bochra at that age. But at any age, one can start. We find in the Maseches Avos, Chavivim bnei Yisrael, shekruim bonim amokim, Chavivi Yisrael yesh shenoidu lehem, that they know this. The fact that they're aware of bonim Hashem Elokeichem, that is a Chavivis Yeser. In this words of Maseches Avos, we have a tremendous big yesod. That a bocher who knows what he is, who realizes what he is, that makes a tremendous difference. That gives him the power to do because of what he is. It gives him the power to withstand the Yetzer Hara because he doesn't. It's not fitting for him to do otherwise. Lefi what he is. Like Abba Satayda, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, tell Klal Yisrael these words and only these words, not more, not less. Atem nisim asher hotzitzim leMitzrayim. And I think Travis, you saw the punishment they gave to Mitzrayim. Know, this Agyomet the Kabbalah Satayda, know that a person doesn't do properly to be punished. Know how much I love you. But then he ends. He's telling them, know who you are. You're Mamleches Kohanim V'Goy Kodesh. You're Am Segula. And that knowledge that you're a special person, you're an Am Segula, that knowledge is part of the Eitzah against the Yetzer Hara. Not only punishment, not only the year that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you, but also to know what you are. What is a Yid? What is a Yid? Am HaNifchar, Asher Bochar Bonu. Where does the Bochar Bonu come? Where does the Bochar Bonu come from? The Derech Hashem give a long explanation. I've said it in a very short way. Od Marishon, but Kohen Machet, there was a situation in the world, very, very, very high in Ruchnis, and the plan was that there would be a world of height in Ruchnis and higher, Madregis, Korov to Malachim on the world. And then was the Chet. And the whole mankind went down. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, there is a possibility still to come back. Maybe I come back fully to what it was, but come back close to what it was. And it's Gozla Chochmosai, as the Derech Hashem says. He's giving you 20 generations. And in these 20 generations, there'll be men who will come up and show themselves to be, that they are shaykh to be, come back to the Madrega or the Marishay. And they will be the Roshei of Mishpochas. Each one will be a Rosh of a different Mishpocha, of a different nation. That will be the nations of the world. They will be the Amim HaNifchorim. But then at the end of 20 generations, there was one person who was fitting for this. And that was Avraham Avinu. And Avraham Avinu was royal. And that's how we became the Am HaNifchar. We became the Am HaNifchar because Avraham Avinu was royal. And he was chosen that he will be the Am, the father of this Am, which will be the Am Hashem. The Am who can become closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu more than the other Am. An Am who has koyach to change Olamis in other worlds. We are an Am HaNifchar, a different type of person we are. We're Yidden. Rabbi Avigdor Miller used to say, a person has to be happy for the fact, I'm a Jew. How great it is. But you can't be so happy, but the Chol HaPochos to realize who you are. Realize what your Jewishness means. If a Bacher realizes what his Jewishness means, that he's a Jew, he doesn't see the Goy. Why can't I be like the Goy? I'm a Jew. I'm close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm an Am Hashem. I have a mission in this world. Am Hashem. That's the first lesson. The first lesson to teach a Bacher what he is. Chabivin. Am Yisrael shenoida shebor matem Hashem location. The next question is the next lesson. What is our purpose? What is the purpose of this Yid? He's on the world. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu put him on the world? What is his purpose? What did he have to do? And then the first lines in Mesilas Yesharim, Yisrael HaChasidus v'Shoresh Ha'avodah Tmimo, she'yizbareh v'yis'ameis eitzel Adam. It should become clear, and a person should believe in it. Machoy v'osar b'olamoy. What is his obligation in this world? Ulamad tzolot sheyosim abotoyum gamotoy b'chol asher om l'koyim echayov. And what is the goal of every act that he does all his life? That has to be clear to him. Hine ma'asharunu Chazal. Chazal have taught us. Lo nivro odom el lehonis al Hashem v'nis'anig mizit shchinosoi. The purpose of a person is to be dovik to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to be nene from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'nis'anig al Hashem v'lehonis mizit shchinosoi. The Rambam Perish Mishnah says the biggest tainug that pasuk to be is knowing the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's what we learn. Knowing the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rambam in Perish Mishnah is. This is our purpose. Our purpose is, as Eden, to know the Rebbeinu Shalom, to come close to the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's what we are. The third question is, how? How does one become close to the Rebbeinu Shalom? And the answer is, as the Mesilas Yesharim continues, that the way is either Torah and mitzvahs. Through Torah and mitzvahs, a person can reach the highest, can reach this madrega of the tachlis. Through Torah and mitzvahs, to reach this tachlis that an oil mabor will be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the tachlis and the ways through Torah and mitzvahs. And the last question: does Torah have any special significance in this plan? And then you tell me Derech Hashem, that's Meirich, and says, from all the mitzvahs there are in the world, that mitzvah which brings a person closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Torah. And the Torah, it's hinged upon what degree of Torah you learn. A person learns with simple pshat, has a closeness. But a person learns with more amkis is more closer, and more amkis is more closer. Who knows more is more closer. A child who knows this, a bacher knows this. What is a Jew? I'm a Jew. What is a Jew? I'm a Jew. What is my purpose in life? And what mitzvah serves I should attain that purpose in life. And Torah is special in that. The whole business of mitzvahs look differently now. Until now, mitzvahs, why do I do mitzvahs? My father tells me to do mitzvahs. I asked Bachram recently, why do you learn? I was astounded at answers. The Bachram in Shiva I'm talking about. From good homes. Why are you learning? My father learns. My father, that's the way we do in our mishpacha, we learn. Such type of answers. Totally irrelevant. Totally lack of knowledge. Unbelievable. But if a bacher has a picture that mitzvahs is not just a difficulty. It's part of a general, big, deep plan that you're a yid. There's a tachlis. The mitzvahs bring you the tachlis. You bring closer to Rabbeinu Shalom. And this is imbued in the child, especially if it's imbued in him at an early age. And little by as he grows older and older, it becomes a fact, a portion of fact. No question about it. Very many of the problems will not be there. Very, very many of the problems will not be there. And what about the not geschmack in learning? You have no geschmack in learning. Part of the not geschmack is that's only part of the reason. There are other reasons as well. But a great deal, and by very many that's the entire reason, is not realizing the chivas of Torah. Deep down, he does not know why in the world you're learning. But why? But you're supposed to, but why? But you're supposed to learn. That's the answer. You're supposed to learn. That's not an answer. That doesn't really satisfy him. And that's why he's learning. You're supposed to learn. That doesn't mean anything. And therefore he has no geschmack, because he's being forced to do, he's doing the thing which he doesn't feel the chosh v'zach. And there are many times in learning that something else is more nicer than learning. More interesting than learning. Once though he sees the general plan and it's clear to him, and he's a yid with a purpose, and this brings him the purpose, that brings the geschmack. I had recently, just a couple of days before I came here, a bacher told me, a bacher was learning in the yeshiva, and he wasn't successful. And we agreed, he wanted to leave, and I agreed, you should leave, try another yeshiva. And he tried, he came for Shabbos in the yeshiva, and I said, how's it going? He said, better, not there. What's the problem? I have no geschmack in learning. I said, what about tefillah? How's your tefillah doing? No, I have no geschmack in tefillah either. In other words, you're lacking your shamayim. You're lacking a geschmack in ruchnis generally. So he asked me, will it be really a difference if I would have a feeling that this is an important thing, I would have a geschmack? I told him, definitely. And I showed it to him, that a person who does something which is very difficult, but he has a geschmack, but he knows he's doing the most important thing, that gives him the geschmack. That gives him a satisfaction. He's doing it. And he thought about it, and you're right. And we discussed the ways how he can get himself to have more Yiras Shamayim. But he realized he's a big Balkishan. All he did was, he had no problem with learning. He had no learning problems. He had no problem with anything. His problem was simply lack of Yiras Shamayim. Had he had Yiras Shamayim, had he realized the whole business, what he's talking about, what Torah is, and what is needed, he would have Geschmack in him. That would be the answer for most of these things, if a Bosco would be treated and have clarity of the hashkafa of what he is and what his purpose is and how Torah and mitzvah fit into his purpose. That would give very, very many of the problems fall away. That's the first point. The first step in dealing with the problem we have with the Bochum. But, unfortunately, we have to transmit it. You can't just say, I'm very nice, say, very good, the Bach has all of these ideas, it's very, very nice. But how do you transmit it? So number one, as I mentioned before, the Chadorim and the Mokum Mochayim HaTorah have to be aware. In Eretz Yisrael, I said many times to Chadorim, one have to be aware that part of the curriculum has to be hashkafa. It's not enough to teach Chumash, not enough. You have to have hashkafa. And then the hashkafa has to be in these areas that I mentioned. And with that, and then where a child, according to his level of understanding, with stories, with Mishalim, from the Chumash, to little by little get older and older with these ideas clearly in his mind. That's the first way. A person who's already older bacher has to be taught. It's a little bit harder. But the mashkiach has to be realized there's a problem, and there's a way of saving the problem. You have to call the bacharim, teach them basics. That's the job of the cheder, the yeshiva. But it's also a problem with there's also the house. The house has to also. A child, wants to emulate his father. And if his father, he sees his father has shaykhus ruchnius. His father has shaykhus ruchnius. The way he makes a bracha, the way he learns, the way his general action is. So his bracha says, oh, ruchnius is a very important thing. It goes into his mind that ruchnius is very important. If a child sees in his father that ruchnius is not important, that bracha is nothing, feel is nothing, the child doesn't articulate it in his mind clearly. My father is telling me my ruchnius is not important. But in the subconscious of his mind, in the semi-conscious of his mind, it goes in a lesson, ruchnius is not important. And once ruchnius is not important, that's what it is. But then there's a father who ruchnius is important. Ruchnius is important. And he does the way it has to be done. And yet it has no connection to the bracha at all. And I want to mention three things which I know from my life in yeshiva with Bochrim. Mistakes which father has. Mistakes that father has in the chinuch of the children. That that parents must be aware of. I once had a situation that a Bacha told me, I hate my father. I said, you hate your father? Why? He was not there for me. He wasn't there for me. He wasn't there for me. When I needed him, I didn't have him. What are you talking about? This Bacha was a very, very problematical Bacha. A Bacha that had to have all the time a special malamed. There were times that he was involved with the police, and his father was influential, had ways of getting him out. There's very few fathers that I know did as much with their children as this father did for this boy. So I said, how can you say your father was not there for you? He did this and this and this and that. No. That was for him. He wanted a son, that's okay. That was for him. But for me, he didn't care about my life at all. He didn't care about what I was doing in my life. He just cared about my Rebbe and how I was doing in learning, but that was it. My life didn't bother him. Therefore, when I had a problem and I wanted to discuss it with somebody, I had nobody to discuss it with. I couldn't talk to my father. Because he really wasn't interested in me. He was interested only in things what's to get for himself. That's the way he looked at it. Not true, probably, but that's why he looked at it. A father must interest himself. Like I said, b'shtuyot shel habachurim. The bacher goes on a hike, plays a game. Yes, who won the game? Why did they win the game? How the game was won? If interested in the things which are not important. But the bacher should feel that what's important to me, my father wants to know. He's important. My father is interested in me. A father, a friend, not a friend, a father, a friend. But a father who's interested and curious to know why this, what happened there with your friend, where you go there, where you go there. Not as coming as a policeman to find out, as a friend to find out what happened. And that this Bacher loves his father and admires his father. And that if his father does ruchnius, he wants to emulate his father. In general, I must say that one of the best ways of saving Bacherim from going off the derech is a good relationship with the house. I had I had this from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. 5 years ago, a Bacher came to me, a Bacher of 15 and a half, 16, with very heavy shilas about Hashkof and Amunah. Very heavy shilas. He was a very, very big Baal Kishan, and he had really very heavy shilas. And he told me he wants to go, I should send him to a mumcha who knows how to answer this type of shilas. To send him. My experience with Amunah shilas, with young Bacherim, is as follows. A young boy came to me once in Slobodka and told me a story that when I was in a certain yeshiva in America, I was in a certain yeshiva in America, and somebody came down to me from Arachim, and they gave a lecture, and I asked him a question which nobody ever asked him, and I stumped him. I stumped him. The point is this: Amunah is not 1 and 1 is 2. It's not a mathematical equation. Amunah is logic, seichel hayosher. A 16-year-old or a 17-year-old bochur many times will not have the seichel hayosher, and he will think, "Why not?" It's a good question. So one is not allowed to speak Amunah, if possible, to a young bochur. You will not convince him. So I told this bochur, "Listen, you're a young bochur. You're too young to talk about it. Takpir, freeze it. Go weiter, learn weiter, daven weiter, do everything weiter, and 2 years from now, come again if you want to come again." So I still was looking during the 2 years how the bochur was doing. He was learning gewaldig. He was davening with a gewaldige fervor. Baruch Hashem. After 2 years, he came to me. I still have the problem. So I told him, "I was hoping you wouldn't have." He answered me, "So was I. I also was hoping I wouldn't have, but I do have it." So we decided we'll have to. I promise you, I'll get you somebody. I'll get you somebody. The Wiley went to his uncle. He asked, and he said, then he came back to me and told me, "You don't have to get anybody." I spoke to my uncle about Kobe said. I asked him, "What did your uncle tell you?" His uncle told him something. Whatever it was tough to read. It was absolutely nothing. From an objective point of view, his uncle did not tell him anything. But what? This bochur wanted so very, very much to remain with the family. He didn't want to go away. And that's why he was ready to satisfy with simpler things. How important it is to have a relationship with a loving relationship with a child. That a child feels, "I want to be part of this family. I want to be part of my father." That's so important. That can save everything. The first point is the father has to know that intersect yourself with your son in what he's doing. The second point, very, very often, every father, whether a frum father, whatever it is, wants the son to be like him. If his father, a person, a very big Baal Seder, he wants his son to be a big Baal Seder. He wants the son to be what he considers very important things. He wants the son to do those things. And if he sees the son are not doing it, and in our circles, if the son is not learning so well, he's very disappointed. If he's not matzliach in learning, he's very disappointed. And he shows it. He shows the disappointment. Sometimes he criticizes. Sometimes with criticism, and sometimes with body language. But the child sees it. He sees the disappointment of the parent in him, and that shatters him. It shatters the child. I once had a ma'aser that a father that had a son, a mishpach of Torah, and all the children were matzliach. One son was not matzliach in Torah. And the parents before were very, very, very disappointed. And they showed the disappointment. Well, the parents tried not to, but they showed it. And every once in a while there would be a criticism. Later on in life, this young man was not in Torah, but it was in a certain organization. And he had an opening in the organization. His mother wanted a job by him in the opening. He didn't give it to her. He told me, "I cannot give it to her. I can't have her to be together in my office seeing me work." He was afraid she'd be disappointed how he works. And he had a resentment towards her. That resentment, I could not give her the job. That's what it is. If a boch has resentment to a parent, he will not want to emulate. He doesn't want to become part of him. It's important that boch should love a parent and want to emulate the parent. And I have to tell you, criticism, what over criticism could do to a child. A number of years ago, I had 2 cases. One case was a bocher wrote a letter. He was almost holding by suicide. from one thing only, from over-criticism of a father. And what saved him was, we sent him to a psychologist, 11 lessons it took. 11 sessions, that taught the Bachar to divorce himself emotionally from his father, but yet he should remain his father. He can remain his father, he can have derech eretz for him, have a kesher with him, but emotionally he broke off. And the Bachar became a finding a man, with a family and everything. Another Bachar had a father who was overcritical. And the Bachar, at everything that he did was, what did my father say? What did my father say? And it caused the Bachar to do crazy things. He was so tense. He had to have an outlet, and he would do all kind of wild things. A parent had to be very, very careful not to be overcritical, and not to show disappointment, because showing that disappointment will do as follows: that you teach the child all the things we spoke before, but at the end of the day, if he has resentment toward the parent, that itself will make him will not want. He doesn't want to be like the father. He'll have a negative attitude towards the father. It's important the father should be a positive attitude and not a negative attitude. The third thing about a parent, everybody knows you don't tell a child to do a thing which you don't do. You don't tell a child, why don't you go to Minyan if you don't go to Minyan? Everybody knows that. But if a parent that wants a child to be a good one, to be like a Yerushalayim and a Torah, and the father learns Torah, and he's Yerushalayim, and he sees it in the house. But he sees that father gets very sometimes very angry, a cast which is he feels is not fitting. He sees the father sometimes lies, and he loses respect of his father. And there's many times you hear from Bachrim, my father's not better than that. My father is not better than that. Not better than me. He does that, I do this. It's very important that a person should be very, very careful not to show do anything bad in front of a child. Because a child looks at it and he loses respect. And part of the avodah, part of the way of getting that our children should be in Yerushalayim, in Torah, is that they should not have resentment to the parent and want to go against the parent. That's a very important thing. I just want to mention, we have a about 15 minutes to go. I want to mention certain things which could definitely hurt learning. There are Bacharim which have learning difficulties. They're very fine boys, Bali Kishoinis, but they have learning difficulties. They can't concentrate entirely. They have problems in reading. It has to be treated. It has to be treated either through psychology or through doctors. Reading problems, and many have reading problems, and it's not known, and suddenly the boy can't really read. He can't really read, and the whole time he's playing around. He can hear the svara. He can talk to you in learning, because he's about Kishin, he hears the svara, but he can't say inside. That can be treated. But there's a different type of problems, which are not so clear. A bocha, I'll give you an example. A bocha, for example, could handle, let's say it's a chira. A chira in a certain halacha. And the Rebbe says there's a chira, sad achad, sad sheni. The Ramban, he says this, and that is sad achad. The Ritva says this, and that, that's sad sheni. Fine, the bocha is wonderful, beautiful, fine, good. But then the Rebbe goes further. There's another Ramban that, according to what we're saying, the Ramban holds, doesn't fit over there. At this point, the bocha became ready to tumult. And the Rebbe goes further, and therefore we have to say the Ramban had a little bit of different track than we said before. At that point, you lost him entirely. In other words, there's certain bocharim that they can handle a certain cheshbon to a certain degree, and they're wonderful in that. But the cheshbon goes further than that, they lose it. They lose it entirely. and everything is gone. The first part he lost also. He lost everything. It was one big tumult. And the Bocher not learning. And had there be a diagnosis that this Bocher is that, he would have been told, when you hear the beginning of the Shia, and you understand it, that's it, don't listen anymore. Fine, that's it, Atkan, don't listen anymore. And the Bocher will go away with very, very clear things, and he'll be very, very happy. Some Bochum have a problem. They don't understand abstract. They don't understand abstract. I had a mice many years ago. Before, I had the Bochum before, so I know more or less where they're holding. And I give the chavrusas according to them. I mark each one. He's number one, number two, number three, what his mark is. And according to that, I make the chavrusas in Shir Aleph. And this Bochum made a lenin on a very difficult places that we deal with Migu, and Taina, murdered it. And I put him at one. And I gave him that Elul, and that we learned Elul, Nidoran Perik Asiri, Nisreikna, those who know what Nisreikna means. And we learned Yevomis, Zika, and all the difficult things. He was totally lost. It was like I learned Kabbalah, which I don't know what the Kabbalah said, that's what was with him. Totally lost. He didn't have any chush at all. What we're talking about, we talk anything abstract. He was great in Tayim and Nitan, but totally lost in Yevomis and totally lost in the Sreika. And I put him together with a good Bach, and it was a disaster. And the Bach was a disaster in the yeshiva. Because I didn't realize at the time what was happening there. The Bach was simply a person who did not understand abstract. Had he been diagnosed properly, that he doesn't know abstract, the Rebbe could have taught him the same thing in a different way, a different Lashonis, more physical, and he would have been okay. That's one very important point. To know about the Geschmack and learning. It's not enough if you have Shivas HaTorah. But there's some Bocherim who are not Bocherim that have to be treated by a psychologist who have a problem with the eyes. The Bocher are regular Bocherim, but the Kishvainis are not such great Kishvainis that they can handle big Kishvainis, and not Kishvainis which can handle abstract. And if we know that, and we realize that, and they diagnose us that, we can treat it very well, and then the Bocher can steig away and be great. And the Bocher will have the Geschmack and learn. Otherwise, he wants to learn, he has the Geschmack and learning, he's Shivas HaTorah, V'chol HaDvarim, but the Maaseh will fall away. There's another problem, that's with learning. There's a different problem as well. In yeshiva itself, there's a problem of Chai HaYeshiva, which is caused by a Bocher who has everything going for him. He has the Kishronis, he has the Yedau we spoke about, and he has the realization of what Torah is and what mitzvahs are, and he's really ready to go ahead, full speed ahead. And he's part of a group of Bocherim in Yeshiva Ktana. There was a certain group. They would go out, they dance money, they would go hiking together, they would go out together. And as part of that group, came to Yeshiva G'dayla. The whole group came to Yeshiva G'dayla. And this Bocher they pushed out. That summer, they didn't call him to go to the hike. That Bocher became devastated totally. Totally devastated. It's unbelievable how much a person needs friends. He lost his friends, but it's much, much worse. They threw him out. A person can't stand to be thrown out. And one has to know that when that happens to a Bocher became mamish despondent. I had a Bocher, a 20-year-old boy, that happened to him, and because he was pushed out of the Chabura, he went into mamish depression. It took a long time to pull him out of it. And a father has to know about it. And what we spoke before, if a father knows about his friends, and he sees his brother, he sees his son is despondent, and he knows that his friends is his son's friends, and he realizes that these people are not calling him. So then he sees that something happened over here. He was pushed out. He had to go to his son. And shouldn't he ask Chazal Shalom, why aren't they calling you? Forget, you have to tell him, Yankel, I see that you're not calling Shloimeh anymore. You're angry at him? The other way around. you're angry at him, so the Bach will start to hem and haw. And the father with smartness can get out of him what happened. That he was pushed out. And the father has to be smart here. If the father says, no, what's the big deal? You'll have other friends. That's the worst answer. The kid is devastated, and he will say, my father doesn't say what I'm talking about. The father has to say, it's like a very, very pragmatic, but I know what it is. It happened to me when I was in yeshiva. And the koyach adin kom mishum medanyan yoser hareza b'shubah. Whoever can make a better story about himself when he was in yeshiva is better. And he makes it. By me also, I had it. It was very hard for me, but eventually I realized that's Yad Hashem, and I pulled out of it. And I had other friends. That's where your father has to answer. But for this, you have to be part of the chavraya of your son. You know that your son had these friends, and that they're not calling him anymore, and he knows that. Another thing, he has to also realize why they throw him out. It could be he's a nudnik, could be he talks not nicely, could be he has hygienic problems. The father has to be realistic and try to figure out what the problem is. And many times he can tell the son in a very nice way, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's that. That's one problem. One should know that such things happen in yeshiva, and if you see a child who's like has ruchnius, has geschmack and learning, and suddenly something happened, take into consideration maybe he was thrown out of the group. And if you know your child's friends, you can figure out if he was thrown out of the group or not. The second thing is kinner. Very often, two bochrim are together in elementary school, they're together. And they start grammar school, what's over here, grammar school, the next step, they're still together. At the end of step 2, when the bochrim of 16 already, suddenly the learner gets a higher madrega, and this bochrim, one of the two, goes up high. He's big about Kisha, and he goes up high. The other one is a little bit less. And maybe the Rebbes speak to him more, relate to him more. You can see the Rebbes hold from him more. Bochum come to ask questions, they ask the first one, not him. And the kinna is tremendous, because he's used to years and years of being equal with this bochum. And suddenly, the other one became higher. The kinna eats him up. Kinna eats him up. There's no really answer. I don't know any real good answer for kinna. Rabbeinu says, do chesed to him. Do chesed to that person. That's the answer to kinna. Others say, and the others say, which very important, which is that kind of thing, try to see something which this person has, which the other one does not have, and point it out to him. Try to show that he's matzliach and this and that. Give him something to be matzliach in. But one other thing I have to say. Very many times in Inyan of Kinna, a person doesn't want to admit. I have Kinna. Doesn't bother me at all. Doesn't bother me at all. It's killing him inside, but he doesn't want to admit to himself. And the fact he doesn't want to admit to himself means it's valid. He's looking at the other person all the time because he has Kinna. He doesn't want to admit it, and therefore he's not doing anything, not learning nothing. Usually would admit it. And as I tried it a number of times, it helped a little bit. I'll give you an example. A person has a chronic headache. A person has a chronic headache has two problems. He has the headache and the feeling that, oh, why do I have the chronic headache? And that feeling of why do I have to have the chronic headache? Why am I not regular? That feeling is worse than the headache itself. If we only have the problem of the headache itself, and it's, this is what I have a chronic headache, but that's it. And not have the feeling, oh, I shouldn't have the chronic headache. It's wrong for me to have the chronic headache. And it has an aggravation. Why do I have it? That aggravation is more than the headache itself. According with kinna. If a person would, I have kinna, and relate to it, I have a problem, I have a chronic headache, I have kinna, and say, I have that kinna. Then a person will feel okay. He'll feel bad, but he can function. He will not stop functioning. He can function. And one last thing. There's something which is called tlut. Flut means that he becomes very, very close, feels very close to a second bocha, and it's not it's clean, totally clean, but very close. Talui boy. He hinges upon him. Flut. And he has to looks at a bocha all the time to see what the bocha is doing. And he wants to look at him. And he wants that other bochum should not go to him. Shouldn't go to this bocha at all. Because he wants to have him for himself. And it bothers him if this bocha goes to somebody else, it's devastating for him. That's called flut. And flut is one of the things that causes bocharim to lose everything, and they cannot learn, and they cannot learn. These are the three things. Being pushed away, kinna, and flut. There are three things which happen in the life of a yeshiva bocha, which a parent must know about, and with the fact that he's a friend of the bocha, can figure out that's what he has. And then he can try to help. He can go to the mashgiach, and he can do, but he has to be aware of it. And then he can through that way, he can bring the bocha back. That has to be done. This is what has to be done. The first thing was that the bocha should have the hashkofis, what we are, what's our purpose, what is Torah, what is mitzvahs. And then the school and the father should not do these mistakes. Also know about the learning problems that a person can have, the school problems. And one last thing which I didn't mention, but I'm not going into, but you know, one point which was very important, the bocha has to be taught in school, Mika, and by parents, midas titles. A bocha who has bad midas, that could be devastating for him. And take away everything that he has, will go away because he has bad midas. And the child has to be mechunech. If you see a child has bad midas, he's a good child, but you see certain bad traits, he has to be taught through stories about Anova, about Geilim have Anova, and teach him Anova. Yeah. If everything is done, then with tefillah, and a lot of tefillah, the Sant Nishmaya, the Rebbe should help him that our children should come out the way we want them to be. Chai Shem Shemayim.
Skandal, Shmai Rabo. Yom, the Baruch, Nisam Yavon, the Chayai, for the German, for the Khan, for Vice, Suai, Baguru, Bismakura, Bimumai, Yai, Shmai Rabo, Bishtaba, Biswa, Bisroima, Bisnasai, Bishando, Bisale, Bisalol, Shmai, the Kitcho, the Ayro, men call the Russo, the Shruso, the Netamuso, Damira, the Old in the Umai, Alisuai, Badamuna, Matalidayo, or call Tamidai Samidayo, or call Mandaoski Bras, Rasadan, Sabasa, Yahai, Hoyla, Shlum Rabu, Him of the Brachmai, the Chayari, in Zoina, the Kunum could have been Shmai, the Alu, the Ibriumai, Yahai, Shlum Rabu, Shmai, the Chayim, Toimarai. I'll call you Srab in Biomai. Oy, Seshuvah, Roima, the Berachmi, Al-Shumalaini. I'll call you Srab in Biomai.